Good afternoon. I have three stories that I want to talk a little bit about, and I have done the last couple of days. But these three stories, individually and collectively, they're kind of indicative of where people's minds are at the moment, right? And I'm aware that a lot of this is taken from the internet, right, and online and social media and all that stuff. And that's not necessarily a one-to-one reflection of the average society, right? I understand all that. But it's moving in that direction, right? So there's attitudes and responses to conversations, questions, and topics that would have been rendered isolated onto the internet a number of years ago. It'd be very, very rare you'd see people react in person the way they react online, right? Up until the last few years, and you're starting to see that a little bit more, right? So the first story is one that I covered yesterday about the researcher who was given, I think, $10 million to conduct research or an experiment, essentially, on children. So what she was going to do was give them puberty blockers or take away hormone inhibitors or an increase of hormones, right? So to see if these things affected the mental health of a child, right? And what she found was that the conclusions or the data or the results of our experiment were clearly not in her favor, right? They clearly didn't reflect her perspective of reality, because she sat on the results and she sat on the data, right? And her reasoning for this was that releasing the data might allow it to become weaponized. Those are her word, weaponized against the trans movement, I suppose she's talking about, right? So in order for her to release the factual results of her research, she would need to feel like it was in her favor and it was in her ideology's favor, right? So she sat on the results because she thought it would reflect badly on the worldview that she has, right? So instead of adjusting her worldview to the truth or to the facts that she gathered, she could always go on and conduct other research, right, to try and validate her worldview or whatever. But instead of seeing this is the outcome when you do this to children, instead of adjusting her worldview to meet that, she wants to hide away the results to assure her worldview, right? And to assure that others don't have a full set of cards when they're making a decision or when they're turning these matters over in their mind, right? So that's number one. And this woman is just indicative of a lot of people who will champion their ideology above what is true and even above what is safe for people, right? Which is dangerous. The second story then, and these are silly little things, right? But they indicate something else, right? Another one is, I'm seeing on X, a lot of people cancelling their membership to the Washington Post, I think, their subscription to the Washington Post, or the Washington Times, one of the two of them anyway, right? And they're saying that because the organization, the media company, the newspaper, right, decided not to endorse anyone for the presidential nominee or for the race, right, to become president. They chose not to endorse either Trump or Kamala. So now you have a lot of people that are saying that they're cancelling their subscription because the newspaper didn't come out and, what's the word? Promote Kamala Harris, endorse Kamala Harris for the presidency, right? Which is, look, that's their gift, and do what you want with your money and subscribe and unsubscribe from whoever you want all day long. No one's business, right? Do what you want. Free human being. But the thinking behind it is that it's not like the newspaper came out in opposition to these people. They just decided to remain neutral, right? Or on the fence, right? We won't promote either candidate. And these people, they take offense to that, right? And it's not like they're just saying, look, there's nothing wrong with funding something that is in line with your values and your worldview, right? But to be name calling and blah, 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 right? That's another thing, right? You're angry at someone because they decided to stay neutral, okay? So the centre cannot hold in this age, right? And the third thing then, completely gone out of my mind. Yeah, so the third thing was, I seen a post there last night, and it was asking why the person who wrote the post was feeling that the backing and the promotion and the momentum behind the LGBTQ whatever movement, right? Whatever. It seems to be waning, and the person was saying not only does it seem to be waning, it seems to be kind of doing a bit of a 180, right? And they were asking why. And I suppose there's many answers to that, but one main one is that people just got sick of it, right? Ordinarily, no one cares who anyone's in a relationship with. If you're two adults, have at it. Who cares? It's very, 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 very small number of people that would care about something like that. The problem comes when you not only want people to not mind what you're doing, you want them to accept what you're doing. And not only do you want them to accept what you're doing, more than just not minding it, they want you to also promote what they're doing, right? And get out on the streets and show your enthusiasm for the sex life of people that you don't even know. That then morphed as you get the LGB, and then you get the T and the Q and the question mark and whatever, the plus, right? And that ends up morphing into children in schools being taught all sorts of foul things, right? All sorts of foul things that they have no business listening to an adult talk about. If it was on the side of the street and an adult was talking to a child about the topics that are said to be covered and are being covered in schools, that man or that woman would be arrested, right? Because, no, under no circumstances should an adult be describing what these things contain with any child, right? So, my point in all that is those three examples are indicative of a way of seeing the world, right? A mindset that people are locked into. They're locked into it. And anyone that disagrees with them, or even if anyone does not wholeheartedly agree with them, they're branded an enemy, right? And these people, they cannot take in anything else that is contrary to the worldview and the mindset that they have, right? So my question on that is this. What do you do with these people? Honestly, like what do you do with these people? So I think we'll find out a lot in the next 6 months, but if you have people that are so ingrained and are so consolidated in the mindset that they have, that they just simply cannot take in contrary information, nor could they admit that they're wrong or they might have been duped or that the worldview I promote is actually causing harm to children, therefore I will adjust my worldview accordingly. You're not seeing that in a lot of people. So I'm not sure what could change that, because the change will have to come from within. And that's the nice way of it happening. If people could kind of naturally acclimatize to the truth, right? Or to a worldview that does not seek to tyrannize individuals or other people, right? It doesn't try and force things onto you. People don't like things being forced onto them, right? They might buckle and accept it for a while, but they'll resent the fact that you forced it onto them. So you're kind of seeing a reaction to these things now, right? So either the change can come from within and a personal decision to adjust themselves to reality, right? Or it'll have to come from without. And I don't know what that looks like. So is that like a social alienation? Is the country built for that? Is it set up to kind of have a segregation units, right? Or a two-system sort of a country, right? Where the people who don't want that to do with this, they're over here doing their own thing. And then those other people, they can go and do what they want, but they're not allowed in here, right? Is that... Because that's what it would look like if these people refuse to adjust their worldview and their morality to the standard of not harming other people. And people will argue that these morality is like arbitrary and you can pick out whatever you want. But that's not the case, like, because some worldviews and mindsets lead directly to damage being done to other people. No one should ascribe to that. And that sort of stuff should be shut down as soon as it surfaces. Because if you start justifying that, you can justify anything to anybody, right? So that's a puzzling one. What is to be done with these people who refuse to adjust the lens that they look at the world through, right? And they refuse to accept that they might have been wrong, they might have been duped, and they might have been highly confused around certain topics. And they also refuse to accept that just because you don't wholeheartedly agree and promote how they view the world, then you must be branded an enemy and destroyed. Crazy. But these are the problems we've been left with, right? So after thousands and thousands and thousands of years of relatively stable sort of culture and attitude to things, now we've had this human bomb that is just, the fuse is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it will detonate eventually. And what is to be done with the carnage that comes from that, I'm not really sure, like, but the bomb is in people's minds, like, you know. And a lot of people don't even realize that they're on borrowed time in terms of their own mental hygiene and stability. Because if you refuse to adjust to reality will break you down.